vai ser tudo em inglês. Então, vou começar. Before we start, I want to ask everyone to stand up. Stand up, drop the computers, put them on the side. All right. Now everybody, lift your arms up high. Stretch to the left. To your, okay, to your right. To your right. Now stretch to the left. All right. And stick it out. All right, you've all had a busy day, so I just wanted to make sure you were all awake. And you all looked a bit nervous, so. So today we're going to explore cutting past the bullshit and designing for the user. Hands up in the air, how many of you in this room have had to forget about the user because of budget, because of time, or because your client didn't understand the need to design for the user? Hands? If your hand wasn't in the air, you're lucky, okay? It's very hard to explain to someone why we should be designing for the user, and yet it's who we should be creating for. Any product we create has to be for the user. Before we go into that too much, let's go into a couple of definitions. For example, design is defined as a plan or drawing to show the look and function or working of a building garment or other object before it is made. Right? Simple enough. Product, an article or substance that is manufactured or refined for sale. And a user, a person who uses or operates something. Simple enough. Definition of bullshit. Stupid or untrue, talk or writing. Nonsense. Crap. Bullshit. It doesn't exist. Design plus product plus the user, according to what I've just defined, does not equal bullshit. Okay, I'm going to use bullshit a lot in this talk. I apologize if anyone is offended, but all right. So how hard is it to design for the user? Okay, we ask this question constantly. People are always saying, oh no, it's impossible. Is it as impossible as dangling from a string, trying not to touch the floor while you're trying to get secret documents as Tom Cruise does in Mission Impossible? No. So let's explore this concept. I want to ask for a volunteer. Volunteer? Anyone from the public? From the audience? Volunteer? Don't worry, you're not going to stand up here and talk with me. I just want you to come sit here in the front. Sit. You can. I'm going to hand this over to Victor, right? Victor. Christian, sorry. I'm going to hand this over to Christian. Okay, and I'm going to ask him every time I tell him to, he's going to press the buzzer. Let's practice that. Okay? It goes through a few different versions of saying bullshit. Number one, myth number one. If you're an expert, you don't need to test your design. How many of you have said this in the past? I did. When I was younger, a young designer, I said this. Press. Okay. Why is it hard even for the experts to predict how users will react? Because number one, our users are not rational. Okay? When we think that a user is going to do something rational, they often don't. They do something completely different. Number two, because people are not like you. They're not. They're different. People sometimes do not use the product the way you imagined. Goes back to point one, they're not rational. And last but not least, because even people can't tell us what they want in a product. They have no idea. Okay? So obviously, how can we believe that we know exactly what the user wants? We can't. Myth number two. UX is a step in the project. Exactly. Okay? It's not a step. UX, according to Lisden Adanzico, user experience design isn't a checkbox. You don't do it then and move on. It needs to be integrated in everything you do, the whole process. UX is a principle. It's not a step. It's not one little thing in the process. It's a principle. Everyone on your team should be thinking about UX, should be thinking about the user. Front-end developers, back-end developers, UI designers, the guys sitting in their offices selling the product to the client. Okay? Everyone should be thinking about UX. According to Dan Safer, he was asked by a client, Why do you want to know about strategy? Nobody wants to know about strategy. Designers don't care about strategy. Wrong. Designers need to worry about strategy, or else we're not doing it right. We're not thinking about the company. We're not thinking about the right product to develop for our users. Myth number 3. Just a second. Product design is a one-time effort. It just keeps going. It's got quite a few. It's kind of fun. It actually showed up in the office this week, which was kind of fortunate. Bullshit once again. According to a study done by Jacob Nielsen, anybody know who Jacob Nielsen is? You should. Okay. Nielsen Norman Group. Okay. They managed to, they had a 165% increase in every single project that was done with an iterative process, which means it's a process that keeps constantly evolving, keeps constantly developing, depending on the feedback you get from people. So you don't do it just once. You do it the whole time. It's always changing, always evolving. Myth number 4. Thinking about your user will slow your development, the development of your product. Okay? Yes, bullshit. Okay? According to a study done, an analysis, they managed to increase there was less waste for development process between 33 and 50% on any single project. Why? Because the development team was designing the right product. They weren't wasting time going in the wrong direction and then having to change again and change again. 50% waste. That is moved away. Okay, less waste. Myth number 5. You know your users. Do we really? No, we don't. I like that one. Okay. Google Buzz. Does anybody remember Google Buzz? No, I don't remember it either, but it was a thing. It was a thing a couple of years ago. Google Buzz tested with 20,000 Google employees a feature that they rolled out with the first version of Google Buzz. It was a failure. Okay, because why? Because the users they tested it on weren't their final users. It was the development team. It was the guys working on the product. They had no idea how it was going to be used in the long run. This is just an example. And myth number 6, I'm going to ask you not to press this time. Usability testing is expensive. Now everybody say together at the same time. Okay, exactly. According to Jacob Nielsen, the maximum you need is 5 people to get a real idea of what you should be doing, and then you should be experimenting and constantly changing and doing testing all through the process. One of the things he says is if you put into an elaborate testing method, it actually wastes time. Okay, it's very complex and you're wasting up resources. However, Steve Krug in his book says that 3 to 4 participants are enough. Okay, getting 3 to 4 people to talk about your product, it's not expensive. Seriously, they'll do it for a cup of coffee. Okay? Every $1 invested in user experience yields a return of $100. Okay, this is a recent study that was done by Forrester and Envision App. That's a huge increase, okay, in return. So there's real ROI of why you should think about the user. The cost of not designing for the user. We spoke about Buzz, but let's get a bit more complicated. Betamax. Who remembers Betamax? No? The younger generations won't remember. Despite the fact it was only launched a year before VHS, okay? They launched in '75 by Sony. Incredible machines. VHS was launched 1 year later. The difference was Sony had better image. The Sony Betamax had better images, better quality. Everything was better. The difference was that they didn't license out their technology. VHS did. By the end of the following year, 4 other manufacturers were with VHS video cassettes outside. What happened was consumers then went with the most available system, which was VHS. Despite the fact that both of them lasted until a couple of years ago. Okay, actually they lasted a long time. Betamax, VHS only outlasted Betamax by 9 months, which is a very short time. But in 1988, Sony was forced to launch their own VHS system. So obviously they had to see that the VHS was the more popular system. Yahoo. In 2005, Yahoo had 20% of the online advertising market. It was number 1. And to this day, people don't understand how they managed to capture so much. They controlled everything in terms of advertising. But then they made bad choices. They lost an option to buy Google for $1 billion. All because they wouldn't answer Google back. Okay? They lost then a chance to buy Facebook for $1 billion. That's measly. That's change for them. And then they were bought by Verizon for a measly $4.8 billion. If we think about the size that Yahoo was before, that's nothing. Okay? Nokia. Nokia was the leader. Everybody had a Nokia. They had 41% of the market. Okay, that's unprecedented. A lot of experts are actually studying the phenomena because they don't understand how in this age of technology someone could have 41%. They lost their 41% completely. Apple launched in 2007. The same year that they had 41%, Apple launched the iPhone. They did not follow the technology. They did not think it was going to be a big thing. They thought, it'll be fun. It's a small little thing. By 2013, Nokia was bought by Microsoft. And they don't have a market share anymore, basically. They only managed to survive because they managed to go into third world countries and present different types of phones for third world countries. They never managed to get into the smartphone market properly. Here are a couple of other brands that didn't make it. Okay, they didn't survive. Various different reasons. Digital cameras, in the 1970s they had the first digital camera. They never launched it. Never. They lost to the digital camera market. Polaroid, all fun and games, but we love to do the pictures where they look like they're a Polaroid, but Polaroid machines are basically dead. And there's a few others, I won't go into all of them. The benefits of designing for a user. Of course, I'm going to talk about Apple. Apple was almost bankrupt in 1997. They got funding from Microsoft. I didn't know this. Okay, I found this out. They got funding from 1997. After launching a whole bunch of iProducts, they were considered in 2011 the most valuable company in the world. Okay? That's a huge change. And yes, at this time, Steve Jobs came back on as interim CEO. He changed a lot of things. But that's the thing. He was thinking about how you could change the dynamics of who works with their products. They think about the user. KLM. KLM has been launching a whole bunch of initiatives that are interesting. For example, KLM Surprise. You don't know what your surprise is going to be, but they launched a whole bunch of things where you might get a surprise just by signing up, just by being part of following them online, by flying with KLM. Instead of sitting there waiting and being boring, you might get a surprise. You never know. KLM Meet and Seat, a way to meet the people who are going to sit next to you before you actually go on a flight. Lost and Found with a dog. It was a campaign, okay. It was a publicity campaign, but it was a dog that runs around and hands in the lost and found stuff. And then obviously their social network customer help is one of the best. Tesla. Everybody's heard the story. In 6 days they implemented a change that was, someone mentioned on Twitter that should be implemented. 6 days. Can anybody tell me what that change was? Anybody? Nobody know? People who charge their cars tend to park their cars there and leave it the whole day. So customers were complaining that people were using up the spaces to park their cars. Tesla implemented something that would basically start charging you if you start wasting too much time on the machine. Okay? Simple. But they managed to roll out their software because they heard their user. We can't afford to ignore the user. Long past are the days when we could. We used to think we could ignore them, but now the user has voice, they talk to us, they keep telling us things. Your product success is defined by your user, not just by us, okay? Not by the people constructing it. Your user will ultimately decide whether we do have the success. So let's cut the bullshit and start designing for the users. Thank you very much. I'm Hugo. Questions at the end, right? Any questions? No? It's true, and it hasn't gotten any easier. Okay? It's still very complicated. What usually works is the first time is getting to a customer where you can put a user talking about their product, for example. If a user tells them something about their product, they start getting interested, number one. Number two, bring your customer into the whole process with you. If your customer's sitting next to you while you're doing some sort of research or something that is included with the users, they also become more interested and they're more open to the idea of, okay, involved. The customer is part of your team. Okay, the problem is a lot of us develop and we put the customer on the side. We say, we're going to create the best product for you. Now stay there and we're going to create it for you. Bring them in and they see the benefits with you. They grow with you. The product grows with the team. Anything else? No? Okay, thanks.